Well, you are just in time for this week's episode of Setting the Pace here on Zuku Sport. Thank you so very much for finding time to join us. Hello and welcome. My name is Sadiq Shaban. We have lined up so much for you in this episode, including how our athletes can be able to invest wisely their money when and after they have stopped running. We have a case study to show you how that can work. Plus, where is the missing link when this isn't done? We're going to be discussing that and have the experts put that into perspective. Stand by. This is Setting the Pace. It is another milestone in reflection for athletics this week as we look at this week in athletics history. Well, the Kenyan running quartet of William Biwott, Gideon Gathimba, Godfrey Kipkoech, Rono and Augustine Kipronochoge are this week celebrating their 4th year since setting the world record in 4x1500 meters relay race that they set in Brussels in 2009. Their time of 14 minutes 36.23 seconds still stands unchallenged. Another Kenyan, Tekla Lorupe, quips that she is happy that a 13-year record of 1 hour, 5 minutes and 26 seconds over 20,000 meters on the track still stands. Lorupe set the record in Germany in September year 2000. And it's not just Kenyans celebrating, but Chinese are also in the mix. 20 years since Ku Yingxia set a blistering world record pace of 3 minutes 50.46 over 1500 meters race at home, the record is still unchallenged. So, what has been happening in the world of athletics this week? Former world marathon champion and record holder Paul Tergat of Kenya has been elected a member of the International Olympics Committee. Tergat will serve for a period of 8 years in the board. And in Argentina, Kenya's Kiplimo Kimutai and Alice Chilangeny won the city's half marathon races. Kimutai clocked 1 hour, 2 minutes and 51 seconds to win ahead of fellow Kenyans Nicolas Manzaka Kamaka, while Brazilian Oyi da Silva Madieros was third. Alice Chilangany of Kenya won the women's race ahead of Brazil's Adriana Aparecida da Silva and Argentina's Rosa Godoy. And after dominating the long-distance track races over the last 5 years, the world will see Ethiopia's Meseret Defar and Tirunesh Dibaba compete in the half marathon in the Bupa Great North Run in England. That will also feature Olympic and world champions Mo Farah of Great Britain, Kenenisa Bekele of Ethiopia, Haile Gebrselassie also of Ethiopia, and Kenya's 1500 meters champion Asbel Kiprop. It's the end of the 2013 athletics season and athletes will be reflecting on the balance in their accounts. So many of them will be having something to smile about, hundreds of thousands of dollars in win and other endorsements that they have earned in 2013. So how can the money they are making work for them in a manner that is prudent? I want to bring into the studio and into the discussion guests and experts in this particular discussion. On my immediate left is Lynn Wachira, a journalist of Kenya and a person with so much experience covering athletics. Lynn, good to see you and welcome to Setting the Pace.
Good to see you, Sadiq.
I see a few dollars in what you're wearing there, so we're going to have to auction it at the end of the day and see how much that can work for you off season.
Let's just say it's good enough money. Yeah. If
Okay.
you want to sell it. Yeah.
Mohammed Salat is the branch manager with the Greenspan branch of the National Bank of Kenya here in Nairobi, Kenya, and an investment expert. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Salat, for joining us.
Thank you.
A few
Sadiq.
shillings we can auction perhaps and get to see what can take us through the season.
I think so.
Let me start with you, Lynn. It's just the Diamond League season has just ended. A number of athletes have won money. We are looking at many athletes this season who have won close to about more than 100,000 dollars, so to speak. How much would you say this money for some of our athletes who are very young?
I think it's too much money. And speaking of the season, the 2013 season, of course, it has also been a world championship year. And I can only imagine that there are some athletes, as of now, since the beginning of the year, have earned over 20 million. I mean, it's not strange to have an athlete who's earned that kind of money, which at some point it can be overwhelming for anyone. And looking at the athletic culture in the country, I don't want to say that most of the athletes are steered by poverty to get into running, but most of them are. Most of the athletes, the story will always be, my mother could not afford this, my father could not afford this, and I realized I could run, so I started running. And they start running, and out of the blues, so much money. I mean, it's unfair to expect, I think, also too much from these athletes. I guess what we should all admit is that they definitely do need help.
And Salat, this is perhaps where you come in. Some of these athletes this year have made more money than many of us perhaps can make in our lifetime. How much is perhaps 200,000 shillings, and you know about money because then your business is money, to an average 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old athlete? How much money is $200,000?
That's too much money. And as you said that, these are things that some of us may not earn or may earn after a very long time. And I believe being young and having to get so much money, sometimes you get extravagant and maybe a little bit flashy. You want to spend and be seen with big cars and all that. I believe it is key that once a talent has been identified, as much as they have career managers and coaches and whatever, they need a financial manager.
This is the sort of money you see in other accounts, corporate accounts.
Yes.
And you probably will be shocked to see this kind of money in an individual account. What is in store for an athlete who has this money but hasn't invested it in something that will be productive?
Of course, there's so much beginning from where they come. I mean, there are so many opportunities from where they come from. You can go into farming, you can do real estate. Real estate, you can never go wrong because it's always appreciating. So it depends with where you're coming from. As long as you put your money to work for you, because you need to think of the future.
Lynn, unlike many of us professionals who probably have degrees in a specialized area, some of these athletes, their career can end in an instant with injury and all that. So what has been the pattern that we see? Can we say our athletes have invested wisely from the previous and from what we have seen? And personally, have you encountered athletes who are running in their years, but right now they have nothing to show for it, despite earning thousands of dollars during their time they were running?
Too many athletes. So many athletes who used to run in the 90s, probably late 80s, and even like really late 90s and early 2000. There's so many athletes who ran so well, they made so much money, but right now after getting injured and getting out of the sport, they've got nothing, totally nothing to show from that. And that has got to go back to lack of financial advice. And I remember one of the former permanent secretaries in the sports ministry.
In Kenya?
Yes, in Kenya. Professor, I think it was called Murugu, Peter Murugu, you remember him?
Yes,
yeah,
Murugu.
The late. He actually tabled a bill in Parliament to have a financial rite of passage, something it was dubbed financial rite of passage, where you get these athletes from their junior, they win a junior title, a junior championship from wherever, and then they proceed to their senior years, they win a title, they win money. If you didn't guide them when they won in their juniors, then they will never, this money, it will not count when it's invested. But unfortunately, it never saw the light of day.
And Salat, you have someone, like Lynn has said, you have someone who has so much money, but after 2 years, this money cannot be traced. You have been in the bank for a long time. What are some of the bad practices that people make with their money, that the money doesn't end up working for them after all?
I would begin with the advisors from day one. That's where it all goes wrong. And also, so many people want to come in and say, maybe I'm a manager and all that. Everybody wants to have a piece of the cake. And that's where everything goes wrong. I would advise the cheapest way to get a financial advisor is going to a bank. Because you will not spend any money to get that advice. Okay? Because if today you say, I want to have a finance manager, you'll be paying a salary and all that. And could be, there are people who can, misadvise you and do all those things. It's important that you go to a bank. They are experts. They will guide you with all sorts of investments.
And just all onto that thought, I'm coming back to you in a moment just to discuss where particularly Kenyan athletes can channel their funds. Here's a case of an athlete who stopped running years ago, about 5 or 6 years ago, and he had his money, and he has put his money where he says he has stopped running, but he will never regret ever putting his money where it is now working for him.
It's almost 2 years, if I can say that. I've been out of major competition. I never participated in any competition since 2010. My last race actually was 2009 in Los Angeles Marathon. It's 3 years down the line now. Everybody, when is actually in active running, you sometimes you sometimes don't think that there is another future maybe after running. And that is why most of my colleagues or some of us whom we used to compete with them, really we motivated one another that after running we have to live a life. And that is why we encourage one another that we need to save, we need to invest and do something so that we can have a life to live after athletics. We can run a business, you can do even farming the way we are doing, so that away from athletics, you can have something to do to keep you busy and to earn you something. And what actually I can say we've done since we left running, it's paying off. It's like we are still active in running, because the investment that is there actually pays, and it gives us another life to live. During our active times, there wasn't no much these people for investment, for example, that comes out there and give you some lectures on how to invest your things. Unlike today, there are so many of them. There are people whom we used to run with. Personally, I was running with them. And right now, you can see them, they are living an horrible life. Why? Because they used to run, and whatever they can earn that time, they will spend it, or they invested it very wrongly. Or what I can say is that when you are running, you have to think you are running to earn something that it will make you to live for tomorrow. And maybe during that time, what they would think for their lives on that particular time. And maybe they thought tomorrow will take care of itself. That is why you find them, they are living another life that they want to go back to track, which is very impossible. They can't go. They didn't invest anything. Maybe the little that they can have is maybe where they can live. And we are very sorry for them. When I talk of the word Helsinki, it means a lot to me. Helsinki is where I won my only gold for 5,000 and the only gold for Kenya during the 7th edition of IAAF World Championship. That stand up to now that we've not win any gold. And also, Helsinki reminds me when I got my son. And I named it after my gold. I dedicated that gold medal to him. That the name is given Tony Helsinki Higen. I can say Helsinki, my son, is the only son in my family. The first investment that I can say I did was to establish my home. And that is where I am. And that is where people, you find that after working for so many years, after laboring for so many years, after running for so many years, they don't have a home to stay. So I decided I have to make my home like any other homes in town or any big cities. And this is my place. I invested in the farm. I have my farm machineries. I can do anything in a farm. I can plow any volume of acreage in the farm because I have the machineries. I have the houses outside there, real estate. But I'm still developing because I still has another capacity to go beyond in real estate. This place actually reminds me of places that I've taken part in racing. All the cities I've won, I've ran, like Belfast, I won World Cross Country there. Zurich, I've ran several times. Rome, where I've been running my personal best in 5,000 meters. All this place reminds me a place where I've been racing, and it gives me pleasure to set up this home in my home area. This is where I come from, so that I feel that my people who are my tenants here can live also in those cities that have won the races. I'm very happy with what I've done. I can live a comfortable life from where I left athletics forever, and even my children. My advice to my young men and women out there, please invest your time, invest your money like the way we've done, so that tomorrow you don't come and start looking for jobs again, looking for where to work so that you can earn yourself, and you've been winning millions and millions of dollars every now and then.
Here's a man who used his money and he's invested in farm. He's got machines and he's now a large-scale farmer, and he's putting up a building somewhere in Rift Valley province of Kenya. Is this the way to go? Yes, definitely it is. And I believe you need to be humble and don't get extravagant. Because, if you want to start eating maybe, 6-7 course breakfast meals which you are not used to, that's where you go wrong first, okay? Just be humble. And I believe about investment, it's sometimes your own talent, but you need advice from an expert. And the cheapest is going to a bank.
And I think to add on that, add on what he said about being humble, I think the society sometimes is too harsh to judge these athletes, especially remembering Samuel Wanjiru. Remember, everyone was saying, he didn't invest, he had big cars, he was doing this and that with the money. But as the society also, I think we have a role to play, because if you don't guide them, if you're saying don't be extravagant, but then to this young guy he's 24, he's 23, and he has a lot of money, at what point does he draw the line between extravagant and what's necessary?
And we're speaking about these guys and the issue of maturity. Are they mature enough at that young age to handle these millions of money, shillings in Kenya, shillings? How do you imagine thousands of dollars that they're getting, considering that some of them really didn't go to the university after completing Form 4. It's just a talent and it's earning them money. So the issue of maturity, how does it come in here?
I think it's a really big issue, and that's why I was talking about the bill. I wish that had gone through, and I think probably the federation has a role to play, because most of the athletes, we must admit, most of them have not gone through school, and they start earning even when they are still in primary school. I mean, how do you expect this child to be responsible?
I mean, one athlete could employ us for 2 years. After just 1 year, they could employ Mr. Branch Manager.
Correct.
He could pay your salary for 3 years.
Certainly.
I don't know how much you're earning.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I would maybe add something to that. I believe it is the role of the association or the federation to have some, guidelines and, measures and things in place that will ensure that during this bracket, we will, support you financially or guide you in investments and all that. And at a certain level is when you can make independent maybe decisions. And
Salat, let me just look at this and just ask you straight up. An athlete perhaps watching this program right now has made $90,000 this season. Just 4 quick areas where they can sink this money wisely and it perhaps will work for them 5-6 years from now.
For me, in my mind, there are quick wins. Real estate. That one you can never go wrong. Real estate, it always appreciates. Secondly, these guys already have a name. You know, they don't need much marketing. They can go into tourism, industry. You can have your hotel, you can have your fleet of vehicles, and they will get lots of money. Those are two quick wins in my mind. And of course, the obvious one, invest in shares for, in a blue chip company. You know, you can put some 2, 3, 4 million there and earn your dividends.
Lynn, we have also seen, like you mentioned, we have seen athletes from Kenya, and we also have examples from Uganda, okay, of athletes who made so much money, but right now they have nothing to show for it. In what ways would you say our athletes are spending their money carelessly, and considering this is really, really hard-earned money? In fact, they are putting blood and sweat into earning this money.
I think, first of all, the biggest mistake that athletes make is waiting until they retire, waiting until they can't run to invest. By the time you can't run, you most probably can't do so much because you're doing it at short notice, so you rush, you make bad decisions, you don't have time to consult. So I think for me, my advice would be, if you are making money right now, don't wait until you can't run, because it could be tomorrow, it could be today, you could be training today and tomorrow you can't run. Then what happens? You start looking for ways to invest, you start spending this money probably for rehabilitation of the injury. What if it doesn't happen? You end up poor.
Your last word, Salat, Mr. Salat, for athletes watching this program right now, and say, my money, where do I put it? How can I get in touch with an expert in banking?
Please, just walking into a bank. Just walking into a bank, they will advise you. These, Kenyan banks, for example, they are all over the country. They know opportunities in all counties and everything. Please just walk in, it is cheap, you will not spend any cent, and get financial advice. Speaking
of spending, I'm just going to ask you a question, Salat. What is the most important, what is the most expensive thing you've bought yourself as a person? And how much did it cost you?
My house. That's the most expensive. Oh, you were asking personal?
How much did your first phone cost you, and what make was it?
How much? Probably, I think 5,000.
Kenya shillings?
Yes, it was a Nokia. The only Nokia I've ever owned. Is that a commercial? I don't know.
And this is where you get to know athletes in a way that you really haven't known them before. So here's an opportunity to know our athletes just the same way you have known stuff about these guys.
My favorite travel destination in Kenya is, of course, Nairobi. A Mitsubishi pickup, and I bought it. It was a second hand, actually very cheap, with 270,000. To Cali. The first country I visited was Poland. I like gospel music like this one of Amy Koskei when I won the first World Championship. And then the worst about is when I missed to finish the London Marathon, just even not 1 kilometer to complete the finish. So it was my worst bad. I started to develop my building, my house, of course, my residence, and small apartments there. Of course, I met her while I was in Mombasa, and she was undergoing some teaching course. She's a teacher now. I am always happy man with some jokes and just fans. I relax to stay without, just relax. This is the way I am now.
Well, I'm not going to disclose how much. This is my first watch. I'm not going to disclose how much it cost me. But that is what you get every week here on Setting the Pace. We'll be showing you new things that you didn't know about our athletes. And this is the time I'd like to thank my guest here, Lynn Wachira. Thank you very much indeed for making time to discuss that and much more with us.
Yeah, it was a pleasure being here.
And we're looking forward to getting to know how much that really cost.
Don't worry, you will, definitely. Probably I'll send you a text message. Or, yeah,
Well, if anyone has an idea, please do us at Zuku Sports. That is our Twitter handle. Mr. Salat, many thanks indeed for speaking to us here and offering your insight about where our athletes can invest their money.
It's a pleasure. It's always a pleasure.
And a business opportunity to bank this.
Yeah, certainly. We have a meeting after this. Yeah.
So what do members of the Kenyan public think about how athletes should invest their money in a manner that will work for them.
Tuna laki hiyo watu wa kutu advise vile tunaweza tumia pesa yetu.
Osi yangu mimi ukimbaji wajekia akiba, hatokimbia maisha yeye. Itafika wakati itabidi apumzike, ali pesa yake polepole kama pension. Lakini akitumia vibaya ataumia mwenyewe mwisho.
Wawe na vile tuna SACCOS, mtu kama anatoa pesa pale, alafu anapewa mkopo, hiyo kitu inamsimamia, ama insurance hivi vitu kama hizo itamsaidia.
Well, last week in the program, we asked you a trivia question. We asked you who is the current reigning world and marathon Olympic champion, who is a current world and Olympic marathon champion, and we didn't get anyone with that correct answer, and the answer is Stephen Kiprotich from Uganda. This week we are asking you who is the current double world champion in 5,000 and 10,000 meters in the world. Get in touch with us at Zuku Sports, and in the next episode of this show, we will be able to give the answer. Well, we have received overwhelming response and feedback from you about the athletes we have showcased so far in Setting the Pace, from Wilfred Bungei to Vivian Cheruiyot and many others that we have put in the show. If you'd like to see any athlete featured in the show, kindly get in touch with us at Zuku Sports. That is our Twitter handle. Thank you very much indeed for watching this episode of Setting the Pace. On behalf of the team, my name is Sadiq Shaban. Goodbye for now.